Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the DeFi enthusiast here from the Crypto Ronins. I hope that you're all doing well. So, at the time of this recording, the price of Bitcoin is at $71,513 at the time of this recording. The Bitcoin dominance is at 56.6%, while Ethereum is at 10.4%, and everything else follows. So, it's been a crazy time throughout this month. As we have discussed in the past, there's a war going on. There's a lot of volatility in the markets. There's a lot of fear in the markets, a lot of uncertainty. Some people are saying we're going sub 50K. Some people are saying the bottom is already in. So, in my personal opinion, like I've been saying, the number one strategy that you should first focus on when you're getting into crypto is don't do anything else, or I would rather say don't do what I would do, because at the moment the markets are very, very confusing. And what I would recommend is that you try to get to a goal of at least obtaining zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. Now, just last week, this was around 6,000 something dollars. Now it's like 7,153. Now, if we come down lower, which some people are saying, and generally when there's too much consensus on one thing, I highly doubt it usually plays out. But if the war continues and things get more chaotic, yeah, we could see more downside. But if you can somehow DCA and get to a zero point 0.1 Bitcoin and just keep that, um as a strategy for your savings, this could be worth a lot in a few years, because seeing Bitcoin go to six figures, we've already seen that. Seeing this going above $1 million eventually is going to happen as well. Definitely before 2030 or by 2030. Of course, no guarantees. Why I say definitely? Because all the markets are getting tokenized. We're seeing massive tokenization. We're seeing institutions buying in billions. Um, Whether they admit it or not, it's going on. If you look at all the on-chain data and what's been developing and what's been going on, and BlackRock constantly talking about tokenization, then you realize that that is happening. On the other hand, we're also about to get the Clarity Act passed. It's 99% there, and it seems like there are a lot of talks about what this is. So basically, we're saying that Circle plummets 19%, Coinbase craters 11%, two crypto stocks caught in the Clarity Act crossfire. So Circle is like they're the issuers of the biggest stablecoin USDC, right? And their stock dropped 19%, of the company's USDC stablecoin product faces restrictions under the proposed Clarity Act, which targets passive yield earnings. Okay. And Coinbase, of course, shares fell 11% due to 364 million in quarterly stablecoin revenue exposure and a 395 million loss on its Circle investment that ties the company's financial fates together. Now, the thing is, okay, long story short is everybody's talking about the Clarity Act. So basically, Circle Intergroup is more exposed to this specific risk than almost any other publicly traded company. Stablecoins are Circle's entire product. USDC in circulation reached 75.30 billion at year end 2025, up to 72% year over year. The reserve income generated by holding assets backing the USDC float is the core revenue engine. If the Clarity Act restricts how stablecoin issuers can structure yield products, it strikes directly at the model. Circle Internet Group flagged the Genius Act and evolving U.S. securities laws as a key risk in its most recent filing. So this risk was already on the table, but the Clarity Act's specific focus on passive yield makes the threat more concrete. Of course, look, guys, if you thought that this technology, right, which we see Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which is sitting at only at, almost at a 2.5 trillion market cap, if you thought that these banks were just gonna let you just go and not, they're gonna let you get away with it, you were wrong. Okay, I've been reading a lot of different posts. People are saying Trump betrayed them, and it's such a disaster, and this and that, and all of that. But the reality is, guys, the yield that they're talking about, right, is on the centralized exchange entities and on centralized apps. Like Coinbase was like earning a huge share of the revenue. I think about 33% on every transaction that was taking place. So yeah, for them it could be a big miss, but the reality is you still have DeFi, decentralized finance, and now people are like, well, until they ban DeFi. No, the whole point is DeFi means decentralized finance. things that are not in the control of any centralized entity. Now, if DeFi fails, then all of crypto is completely useless, and it fails as well. Now, one of the biggest factors that people keep forgetting, and you know why they're just panicking, guys, let the Clarity Act pass, okay? Trillions are going to be coming into this market, okay? Tokenized stocks, everything is going to be tokenized. S&P 500, you name it, everything, commodities, all of that on the blockchain. And that means this number eventually goes into, 30 trillion, 50 trillion, 100 trillion, hopefully. That's really the plan. So weren't we here to make money anyways? I mean, who gives a damn about a 4% yield, okay, on stable coins when you could be making 20,000%, 50,000%, 30,000%? That's the type of monumental gains that you would see. Secondly, you have decentralized finance apps that are offering 7%, 8%, and so on and so forth. However, just to clarify, Merlin, credit to Merlin the trader, he says the Clarity Act just solved the stablecoin debate. Earn yield through activity, not just holding. Banks agreed, crypto agree, done. So one question remains, what counts as activity? That battle will define the next cycle. Smart money is already positioning around the answer are you. So basically now, right, you can't just earn passively just by holding your stable coins in these centralized apps. There needs to be some activity. So from my guess, the way things are developing is, how banks charge you a certain amount of fee, right? If you're not depositing a certain amount monthly into their accounts. In that same way, I think they're going to do something like that. They're going to reward you for the activity that you bring in. They're probably going to pay you some yield as well, probably, for being active on their apps and contributing further and further. So it's basically just like, just exactly what the type of activity that banks wanted. Because if this act passed and the banks lost their deal, which I would have loved, honestly speaking, but if they did, then what would have happened is that they would lose all their customer base, because honestly, I mean, with Coinbase and all these other, with Kraken becoming a bank and all these things, they're providing way better services, way better yields, so on and so forth. The banks we're going to lose their customers within this decade for sure. So and if you think that the politicians that you elect are going to go against the banks, you are naive. Okay, so this was written on the walls, but that is exactly why I've been saying for years and years that, decentralized finance, DeFi, is, the primary flight to quality, right? That's where you're going to make the most amount of money. That is where it's going to be sustainable. That is where things are heading. So it doesn't matter what these people do. Let the Clarity Act pass. Let the trillions and trillions of dollars come. You make a ton of money. You make so much money that you don't need to bother about that stupid 4% yield that these traditional, morons and scammers and grifters are giving you anyways. So that is that. Let's put this Clarity Act business to rest. We were in crypto to make a lot of money, not to be earning 4% yield on whatever money that we deposit. Okay, that's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. And it shows you how much the crypto market has changed within the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, the level of fear and panic and nonsense that has been going around in this space is absolutely disgusting, and it's so discouraging. And it's also discouraging that people who came into this market, who saw those type of monumental gains, talking about this and literally, portraying it as if it's the death of crypto. What is wrong with you people? Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Get over it. No, if trillions and trillions of dollars are coming into this market, you're going to see those thousands and thousands of percent gains. There are other great avenues to make that type of money. If you really want passive yield, DeFi is the solution, and DeFi was always going to be the solution. As I was, and I already called it out. I told my followers that eventually what's going to happen is that there's going to be a war between centralized finance and decentralized finance, and that's exactly where we're heading. And DeFi is here to say code is immutable. Ideas are immutable. Look, let me put it to you this way. They couldn't stop torrents from being downloaded today. You think they can stop DeFi? Come on, guys. I mean, how naive could you be? And if they were to ban, let's say they were to ban DeFi, then definitely the US is not going to be the crypto capital of the world. Things are going to move elsewhere, and things are already shifting. If you look at the narratives, the rise of Southeast Asia is there. Okay, Middle East. is very, very chaotic right now, but Southeast Asia is where all the growth is. South America, things are changing. The markets are changing. Every 100 years there is a market reset, and that's exactly what's going on. And basically, you have about 4 to 5 years to make a lot of money. Okay. And after that, it's going to be very, very difficult. Even Nvidia CEO has admitted that. Because why has he admitted that? Because it's written on the walls, guys. Go read Agenda 2030. You need to be financially free. You need to understand these markets. You need to do your study. Okay. And I think that, Crypto Ronins, right? Our newsletter is one of the best sources for you to learn about what's going on in the markets right now. Breakthrough research, proper wealth generation tactics, great fundamental deep dives into some of the best projects that we believe in the space that are going to give those type of monumental returns, which we are here for. But my advice is, if you're new to crypto, accumulate. Again, anything that I say is not financial advice, but at least accumulate zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. And I would say at least try to get about, 3 to 4 or 5 Ethereum if you can, which right now is still a huge amount of money, guys. But, in the future, because all tokenization is going to go through Ethereum. Okay. The Ethereum, in my opinion, is going to become the settlement layer. So when we say 5 Ethereum, that's going to cost you about $10,944, right? At the time of this recording. However, this could be, if Ethereum sees a 5 to 8x, in a couple of years, that is a great return in itself. And then, of course, we're talking about those altcoins that are actually doing something, that have real utility, that have, this industry was built by retail and by, great developers. Those people need to come back. Okay. We need to get away from these stupid conversations about 4% yield and start going towards innovation things. And some of those innovative projects we've already mentioned in our newsletter. So we highly recommend that you join it. It's not that expensive either, guys. It's going to cost you maybe one lunch in the entire month, and you can get some of the best info that we believe is out there, because we created this to make your lives easier. We created this to solve the problem. We created this because we also wanted people to have a portfolio that they could hold, for long term. In crypto, long term means 6 months to 2 years. Okay. And basically, we believe we have the best products in the space. So we highly recommend that you join that. We look forward to seeing you inside there, guys. So very, very important, guys. Just remember, the Clarity Act nonsense. It's not the end of the world. Okay. And of course, this only applies to U.S. customers. Okay. If you make all that kind of money, why the hell would you want to live in a highly taxable country to begin with? Move elsewhere, figure things out. Once you come into money, the whole world is open to you. Okay, guys. So just relax, let this pass. And obviously, if they try to mess around with it too much, they're definitely not going to be the crypto capital of the world, because there are other countries willing to compete with the U.S., willing to do whatever it takes. For example, Iran, the IRGC has one of the biggest Bitcoin mining facilities. Do you know that in Iran you could mine Bitcoin for like $1,300 a whole Bitcoin because of their electricity rates? I mean, how insane is that, guys? And then they sell it into the open market for its current price. That's a huge return right there, guys. So, like I said, if the U.S. really wants to be the crypto capital of the world, it needs to cut the crap. It needs to stop appeasing to the banks all the time, and it needs to start, pulling its weight in helping this industry, which is in its infancy right now, to really, really develop further. And of course, if everything is being tokenized, everything is coming on the blockchain, it's a no-brainer that this market is going to grow monumentally. Okay. So that's what we're waiting for. We don't care about that 4% yield on a centralized app. We care about, making those type of crazy returns that will set you up for life, because these last few years are that remaining time. And I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Join our newsletter. Okay, we are publishing one today, and we have done a deep dive on Tau, and I think you really like it, and why we believe that is one of the next big things. Look into that, read that, subscribe to our newsletter. I'll probably read the free version of the newsletter. I'll read some of the stuff from there, so that you kind of know, you have an idea what you're buying into, because there's so much alpha already in the free version of the newsletter, and I'll be doing that tomorrow, guys. So this is me, the DeFi enthusiast from the Crypto Ronin. Subscribe to our newsletter. Take care, guys. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you and I'll see you inside. Looking forward to looking forward to all of your growth and well-being. Take care, guys. Bye.